Welcome back to new session. This is your trainer and PMP coach Anand. My goal is to help you pass the PMP exam and be a part of your exciting PMP certification journey. This is continuation of cost management knowledge area. In this session, you will learn plan cost management process. Before you start, request you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We have 4 processes in project cost management knowledge area. First 3 processes are under planning process group, that is plan cost management, estimate cost, determine budget, and last process is control cost, which is in monitoring and controlling process group. Of course, the focus of this session is on plan cost management. So what is that we are going to cover? The learning objective of this session are: we will start with the introduction to understand why this process is required and when it will be done. Process definition, we'll go through ITTO, what are the analytical techniques, and in detail we will talk about cost management plan, life cycle costing, and a quick review at the end. This is the first process for the cost management knowledge area, and it follows the same pattern as the first planning process across the other knowledge areas. In previous videos of a scope and schedule management knowledge area, we already discussed why planning is the first process. So why cost planning? This process is about how project manager will plan and execute the cost management activities throughout the project life cycle. It starts early in the project. It involves estimating, budgeting, and controlling activities. And project manager has to ensure all sort of cost is included in estimation. There are always costs which are visible to you, just like a resource cost, hardware or software licenses cost. But then there are invisible costs which are not direct. But as a project manager, you need to ensure all sort of costs are taken care. So direct costs, indirect costs, fixed costs, etc. And another important activity is to report the cost, cash flow to concerned stakeholder. As you know, finance, monitoring the cost is very important aspect for a project manager. Organizations are very much concerned about how much money is spent on the activities. So that's where the cash reporting, cash flow reporting is very important. Let's look at the definition. Plan cost management is a process of establishing policies, procedures, documentation for planning, managing, expending, and controlling overall project cost. The definition reflects everything that need to be done as a part of a cost management planning. And we just discussed same thing in the previous slide. In nutshell, it provides the guidance and direction on how the project cost will be managed throughout the project life cycle. We have similar input, tools and techniques and output just like most of the other planning processes. Inputs are project management plan, project charter, enterprise environmental factor, and organization process assets. Project management plan. So multiple subsidiary plans may impact the creation of cost management plan. So first one is schedule management plan. It may impact the cost estimation and management. For example, crashing a schedule to reduce the estimate of any particular activity may increase the cost estimate. This is because crashing means adding more resources to get activity done more faster. And this means that when you add more resources, the cost will be increased. Risk management plan may impact cost estimation and management again. For example, planned risk response may cause additional costs to the project which are justified by reducing the risk of the project. Project charter will provide summary budget. It may contain pre-approved financial resources from which the detailed project costs are developed. It may have approval requirement that may influence the management of project cost. For example, if you need to have explicit approvals from certain authorities, it means that management resources, management activities will increase. The information from project charter that can be critical for cost planning are measurable objective and success criteria, high-level risk, summary milestone schedule, summary budget, stakeholder list, and project approval requirement. For example, if you have a risk which are very critical and the probability of that risk is very high, then you may need to have a contingency reserves to deal with this particular risk. It means your overall cost of project, the estimation of a project cost will be increased. Enterprise environmental factors will have an impact on cost management planning. Some of the important EEFs are market conditions. It will describe the cost of product similar to the one being proposed to be created by the project. Organizational culture and structure. It can influence the cost management. For example, if a project is getting executed in a functional, matrix, or projectized structure, organizational culture will have an impact on how the cost related decisions are made. Project management information system. It is used as a tool to create the project budget. Always remember there is a confusion. Now software a tool is considered as an enterprise environmental factor, whereas the data created using these tools are considered as an organizational process asset. Published commercial information provides standard cost for resources commonly used on the project. It might be human resources or other resources. Currency exchange rate may also impact the planning, especially if you are procuring products from other countries or if a project itself is getting executed at multiple locations which is span across the globe. So all these EF can impact the planning process. Cost planning will use input from organizational process assets, OPA like policies, procedures, and guidelines, especially for cost estimation and budgeting. Every organization will have its cost related policies, so that should be used on the project while you are planning. An organization's financial control procedure, for example, accounting code to be used to track the expenses on project. Some organization might say, well, all the human resources has to be accounted under certain accounting code, all the contracts has to be accounted under certain control code, and maybe other product, licenses, hardware that should be accounted under certain code. Historical information and lesson learned repository, especially from past project which has a similar product, similar nature. Financial databases, especially the database of internal resource cost, resource rates. So all these OPA will help you to improve your planning. Well, you understood the inputs that will be used while planning. Now let's look at what are the tools and technique. So we have expert judgment, data analysis, and meeting. Again, similar tools and technique like other planning processes, but the context will be slightly different. Expert judgment. Who is going to assist you in creating the cost management plan? Of course, project manager is not a master of everything. He need to get inputs from expert. Experts with a specialized knowledge of creating the budget on previous similar project. The expert with the cost estimating and budgeting techniques knowledge. Now these techniques can be used in a specific application area in which this project is getting executed. For example, construction cost estimation technique, software cost estimation technique. Also, someone who can guide in cost controlling. Someone maybe, for example, expert who has a knowledge of how to use earn value management on the project. So all these experts provide a valuable insight on the costing methods. They examine and compare different approaches like cost of quality, cost benefit analysis during the project lifecycle, and they provide input for financial analytical techniques like rate of interest, ROI, internal rate of return. Another important tool and technique is a data analysis. There will be a lot of analysis involved in cost management. During cost planning, project manager need to think about what kind of options will be considered for funding the project. Will it be self-funding from the organization's overall budget, or whether it is going to be funding with equity or funding with debt? Equity is a stock or any other security representing an ownership. Alternative analysis will help to decide which options will be best for organization. For example, whether to acquire project resources from outside the organization or should you use the internal resources. So you will need to do alternative analysis like whether to make something internally, buy or purchase from outside, rent. For example, should you rent construction crane for a 5-month project or you should lease it? Experts will use a financial techniques for analysis to support the planning. So techniques like payback period, return on investment, internal rate of return, net present value. So these techniques will be executed or used to do certain planning. We will learn about these techniques and some of the associated formulas in detail in another session. Finally, note that project manager may not be involved in the financial decision making. So he will only support with the facts and figure so that respective authorities will make the decisions. Meetings. Meetings will be used to discuss how to estimate and manage overall costs throughout the project life cycle. Remember, estimation is also a repetitive activity. So during a meeting, stakeholders will discuss and agree on the funding options. They will discuss and analyze ways to finance the resources. Meeting should be held with experts and they will guide project management team to use the data analysis techniques that we learned in a previous tool and techniques in order to finally develop the cost management plan. Who will attend the meeting? Of course, anyone with the cost planning, estimation and budgeted related responsibilities will be a part of these meetings. So it will be definitely a project manager, sponsor, because a lot of financial decisions are taken by sponsor, key team members, financial experts and key stakeholders. The output of plan cost management process is cost management plan. So let's look at cost management plan in detail. The cost management plan will provide the guidelines and cost management practices. It will describe how project costs will be planned, structured, and controlled. It contains details about all three processes, roles and responsibilities for cost-related activities, funding decisions, guidelines to establish a cost baseline and who will approve that cost baseline, guidelines for dealing with the fluctuating cost. For example, in a big multi-year project, the essential largely used commodities like oil and cement, their cost can fluctuate. So how you are going to deal with this fluctuating cost? And of course, the cost for change control procedure. Plan will also contain information about unit of measure, level of precision, level of accuracy, organizational procedural link, control threshold, rules for performance measurement, reporting formats, and additional details. So let's understand each of this in detail in subsequent slide. Unit of measure. This indicates how something will be measured. For example, resources allocation and output measurement will be done in hours, days, or lump sum cost. Another example can be in a road construction project, estimation will be done in terms of kilometers or miles. Now, slightest of mistake, either deciding kilometer or miles, can have a major impact on the project. So it is important to decide upfront what kind of unit of measures will be used on the project. Level of precision. How the cost estimate will be rounded up or down. For example, if a daily rate of resource is $99.85, then it can be rounded to $100. This becomes very important if the currency exchange rate is very high. Level of accuracy. What is acceptable range? Usually this is expressed in terms of plus or minus percentage for determining realistic cost estimate. It can be for a cost as well as the resources. One of the well-known level of accuracy used in PMI is initial rough order of magnitude, which is minus 25% to plus 75%. And there is a definitive estimate which is generally done in the later part of a project during the project management planning, which is minus 5% to plus 10%. Organizational procedure link. If you remember, in a scope management, we learn work breakdown structure. WBS is very useful to determine overall budget. There are control accounts defined inside WBS, especially based on the certain departments requirement like a finance department requirement to track particular expenses. For example, they want to track separately the cost related to human resources, cost of contracts, and the cost of physical material used on the project. So these project defined control account codes may be linked to the accounting system of the organization. Control threshold. These are agreed amount of variation to be allowed. Once a variance is detected, it will be compared against threshold. Thresholds are usually set in terms of percentage deviation from the baseline. So any amount of variation above that threshold will trigger certain action. Now this action can be for project manager, project team members, or maybe for a sponsor. These thresholds help project manager to take informed quantitative decisions. Rules for performance measurement. How many times as a project manager you face a situation where you think project is performing well in terms of cost and schedule, but your project management office or project sponsor thinks differently. Earned value management or EVM is a tool used in monitoring the performance of a project, including whether it is ahead or behind the schedule. The rules of how earned value management EVM will be used on the project should be specified during the planning. So all these details are included in the cost management plan. So this is the, you can say, agreement between project manager and PMO or a sponsor to decide the project's performance. And finally, you have reporting format. These are the agreed reporting format and the frequency to share the cost report, cash flows, etc. with a relevant stakeholder. A lot of time these cash flows are shared with your finance director. It will be shared with the sponsor, relevant authorities. Now we also have additional details like how the project will be funded, strategic funding choices. We also have a life cycle costing. So life cycle costing describes a broader view of a project cost management. It considers the cost of using, maintaining and supporting the product, service or result of the project.